good people, and welcome to a brand new episode of Flight Review. My name is Ray. Thank you so much for joining me. I am on my way home from the Birmingham 8 because today I had to go to that theater in order to see the movie that I wanted to see that opened today. I don't know if anybody follows me on Threads, but I wasn't going to my other theater because my other theater is showing a documentary that I want absolutely no part of with respect to anyone in the building that would pay money to see that damn documentary. So I went down the street to the Birmingham 8. And the Birmingham 8 is a theater that I am very familiar with because that is the theater that I saw. I've seen a number of movies there, but most specifically, the Birmingham 8 is the theater in which I saw Zack Snyder's Justice League with my good buddy Tim, my podcast brother over at Squadcast Media, and his wife was part of another one of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention gatherings, fundraisers that they had. And it was awesome to watch that movie on the big screen with a theater filled with fans that love that movie and have a great appreciation for Zack Snyder. So, and the Birmingham 8 is just, it's a gorgeous theater. It really is. It's a very nice area. It's a very nice, old-timey, old-school, setup, with movie posters and the old dais, and they got a bar upstairs, and it's just a nice, classic-looking theater that shows first-run movies. So I went down there to see the movie that I'm talking about today, which is Send Help, the latest from Mr. Sam Raimi. And I gotta tell you, I was, when I saw the trailer for this, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks, a month ago or whatnot, I saw the trailer for this movie, and I was already somewhat intrigued by what it looked like, with respect to Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien and the concept of the movie just inherently, because I'm like, oh, this could get really twisty. And I was like, this might be one that I go see in the theater. And then I saw one detail that led me to immediately make this a day one viewing, and that was the fact that it is directed by Sam Raimi. I'm not missing a Sam Raimi film anymore. I'm not. Just not going to do that. As far as a day one watch in that regard. Not a film like this. Not one that is going to be pure Raimi. Not one that is going to be straight from his bag of tricks as, one of the most maybe underrated auteurs out there, right? You don't hear Sam Raimi's name talked about in the same vein as a Christopher Nolan or, a Denis Villeneuve or a Spike Lee even, or Ryan Coogler. You don't hear Sam Raimi's name spoken amongst, any of those greats that I just listed. But, or even Quentin Tarantino, right? You don't hear Raimi quite heralded the same way because he has a very distinct style, a very unique style that, you got to be a fan of the flavor. You do. You just have to be a fan of that flavor with respect to what he does with films. And, I don't want to call it one note because it really isn't. There's actually, he's got a real nice craft to what he does. It's very darkly comedic. That's the best way that I could put it. Darkly comedic. Just about every film that man has made that I have seen, that I enjoy, is darkly comedic. Even the one that's really dark, which is the first Evil Dead. People don't believe me that the first Evil Dead movie is an actual horror movie. It is. The first one, not the second one, which is really just kind of a remake of the first one. And certainly not Army of Darkness. Those are both darkly comedic. Darkman is darkly comedic, even though it's not really a horror movie. Drag Me to Hell is very darkly comedic. Yes, indeed. And so, as soon as I saw that this film, that already looked intriguing as far as the premise and whatnot, the idea of a disrespected woman at the workplace who is just, all manner of horrible boss treatment she is receiving from Dylan O'Brien's character, and just the idea that she is going to, that they're going to get caught up in a plane crash, get stranded on an island castaway style, and the tables just turn. That sounds like some great potential for some darkly comedic stuff to occur. And no one better, in my opinion, than Mr. Sam Raimi to try and turn that into a darkly comedic classic, if you will. So yeah, wanted to see this on day one. Saw it after work, came down to Birmingham for a 2 p.m. showing, and I am on my way home now from that showing. So here we go with respect to the review. Hey, for those of you, by the way, just before we get in all into the talk about this particular film. Spoiler-filled, if you will, or maybe spoiler-free. Yeah, you know what? We'll keep it spoiler-free. We will. That's going to be the new pledge for the new year, to keep these reviews spoiler-free. So that in case you wish to watch, you have the ability to watch it later, like after you read this review, if you are so inclined after listening to what I have to say. And then we can have we'll have the spoiler conversations on Flight Chat, for the feedback. We'll leave it that way. But of course, those of you that are brand new to Flight Review, I started doing these in the car on the way home last year because I like the idea of it being fresh in my mind. When I did it the last couple of ones that I did for last year for movies I go see in the theater. I did them on the way home. Same way. I've got the TikTok mic hooked up, so it's all hands-free. It's safe. It's all hands-free here, right? I'm not holding a mic in my hand. I'm still got two hands on the wheel. I'm driving safely. It's all good, especially in this cold. My goodness, it's 16 degrees outside. 16 degrees, and the roads are relatively clear except for like the side streets. You know how that goes. Those freeze over and get caked with snow from the plows and whatnot. But yeah, not exactly the time of year to not be paying full attention to the road when you're driving in this particular climate here in the Midwest. But for those of you new to Flight Review, you can find this show and all of my other shows, of course, at theflightcast.com and on the Flightcast YouTube page, Flightcast YouTube channel. I need to stop calling it a page. I mean, technically it is a web page, but it's a channel. Flightcast YouTube channel. That's right. YouTube is a television network. The Flightcast is a channel on that television network. And you can find this and all of my other shows at that particular channel. That includes the main show, Flightcast, the feedback show, Flight Chat, and any other top side shows that I post with respect to Flight Box for television or Flight Review, this show for movies, and anything else with respect to that. And also thank you to everyone who is a supporter of patreon.com/theflightcast. Bonus content there. I will be recording a Friday flight with respect to some sad news that we received today. Just when I sat down to the movie theater, I received the news about Catherine O'Hara. So yeah, I definitely want to have a retrospective about Catherine O'Hara on Friday Flight tonight. So there will be the first episode, the first 2026 episode of Friday Flight on Patreon will be recorded when I get home and posted for patrons. So hope you enjoy that later tonight. Hope those of you that are patrons at patreon.com/theflightcast, hope that you're enjoying the bonus content. 3 tiers. There is the Flight Cadet tier, which gets you the access to Flight Speed, which I record on Mondays, and also Friday Flight that I just mentioned, which, again, the first episode of that for 2026 will be posted tonight. Then there's the Flight Crew tier, which gives you access to those, plus the Sun Just Don't Rants. I had a doozy of the Sun Just Don't Rant the other day, talking about the entitled fans that James Gunn just bodied in a couple of Threads posts that he was responding to a couple of days ago. I love that. I love when James Gunn responds to idiocy, that just inane idiocy, and really shuts down some cultist fanboy nonsense. I had a fantastically uncensored rant about that, if you will, the other day on Sun Just Don't. You have access to that on the Flight Crew tier, and then there's the Flight Officer tier, which gets you access to everything, including all the bonus episodes. With respect to Flight Fright, which was the Halloween show, the review show that I did back in October, reviewing horror movies. 12 Days of Flight Review, the Christmas movies that I reviewed, plus all the bonus episodes of Flight Box, Flight Review, and everything else and whatnot. And also, stay tuned for a special project in February that I will be starting very soon. A very ambitious project, arguably the most ambitious project I've attempted on Patreon with respect to movie reviews, but it will be appropriately themed for the month of February, so stay tuned for that. Hope everybody will enjoy that. As always, cannot thank you enough for your support to patreon.com/theflightcast. All right, so let's talk about Send Help, the latest and greatest from Mr. Sam Raimi. High-level thoughts on this particular film, seriously. I tell you what, before even getting into high-level thoughts, let me just say I am a Sam Raimi fan. You're listening to, rather, I should say, a Sam Raimi fan. And we've got to go back to what? What was the first Sam Raimi movie I saw? Was it the Spider-Man movies? No, I feel like I've seen, I know I saw Army of Darkness maybe later, maybe, sometime, but I feel like at least one of the Raimi movies, I don't know, because like Darkman, like I own Darkman, and which isn't like the greatest movie, but you know it's pure Raimi, and there's a lot of like fun, darkly comedic stuff in that film. But let's see, Army of Darkness. My buddy Brian, that I've talked about many times before on the main show and also on this show, and certainly over at Squadcast Media. My buddy Brian from college, huge fan of like zombie movies, George Romero, and Sam Raimi, and Bruce Campbell. He's a bigger Bruce Campbell fan than he is Sam Raimi, but he definitely enjoys Sam Raimi. And you know, Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell are thick as thieves. You know, they both are from the Michigan area. They both graduated from Michigan State. Unfortunately, it's the only thing I hold against them. But at any rate, they, you know, like their style, you know, the Evil Dead films, particularly Evil Dead 2, and most certainly Army of Darkness, right? That's the quintessential Raimi style, if you will. And he did bring that to the Spider-Man films, his Spider-Man trilogy, which of course I own. And, you know, if I were to rank those movies, I think it would definitely be in the order of 2, 1, 3. I think the second film is the best out of those three. And then, you know, followed by the first one, and then the third one is, you know, I have different feelings on the third one, especially after watching the editor's cut, which we reviewed. It was one of the last reviews that we did over at Squadcast Media. I have a different feeling about that particular film. I certainly don't hate it. I've never hated Spider-Man 3, but you know, it dragged me to hell. I'll tell you, that was one that Brian and I saw at the Bruin View. We went to a Bruin View at a place in Ferndale called the Magic Bag, Ferndale, Michigan. And we saw that movie there, and man, that movie, I tell you what, that's some of Sam Raimi's darkly comedic best. And the ending, my goodness, wow, that ending just stuck with me for a while. Seriously, that was something else. Crazy. And then we get to his MCU debut, Sam Raimi, that is, and that's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And look, I will push past the fact that it made $955 million, which is not a measure of subjective quality, but it is a measure of popularity. So don't tell me that people did not shell out money to see that movie. They did. They most certainly did. Made just shy of $1 billion, right? But so many people that didn't necessarily care for that film, I loved it. It's one of my favorite MCU films, truthfully. It's definitely in my higher tier, if you will, because it's pure Sam Raimi. And I love pure Sam Raimi. Pure Sam Raimi is gold. Fantastic. Though there's plenty of darkly comedic stuff in that film. There's dark stuff, and there's darkly comedic stuff in that movie. It's one of the most it's arguably the most darkly comedic MCU film. And that's what I really like about it, because Scott Derrickson, you know, originally when he wanted to do the Doctor Strange sequel, you know, he directed the first film, he wanted to make it R, and he wanted to do like straight horror, like straight mystical horror. And Feige and the Marvel Council at Marvel Studios did not want that. They wanted something, you know, akin to that, you know, the darkly comedic tone, but they definitely did not want to cut off their audience. They wanted to still make it PG-13. Well, who could possibly do that? Hey, Sam Raimi, who in many ways is the godfather of like the MCU formula, because make no mistake, there were lessons learned by Kevin Feige and company with those Spider-Man films that he did, no question about it. And a lot of the seeds planted in those Spider-Man films for Sony definitely paved the way for, you know, experimentation for a number of years after that with the Fox films like, you know, Daredevil and Fantastic Four, you know, and certainly, you know, when you bring somebody like Raimi in to do an MCU film, I told people, I said, listen, this is not going to be a case where, you know, all of a sudden Raimi's style is going to be lost in the MCU machine. This is a case where, of all the directors in MCU, like lore, if you will, this is the one director, Sam Raimi that is, that he will tell Kevin Feige to jump, and Kevin Feige will say how high. And if you watch Multiverse of Madness, that's precisely what that movie is. It is the full Raimi. It is 1,000% a Sam Raimi MCU film, which is why I love it. Because there's just something about Raimi's darkly comedic tone where, whether it's violence, whether it's gore, whether it's silliness, whether it's crazy suspension of disbelief, like there's so many different elements that he just has a way of turning hilarious, right? Things that ordinarily wouldn't be funny, like blood and gore and like crazy attacks and like, you know, shifty moves and like stunt work and whatnot. Like he just has this way of making these things darkly comedic, and it harkens back to like a classic time, right? There's a classic feel to Sam Raimi's films, a very classic feel in terms of like old school, like, tech, and just, how he, portrays suspense and how he builds tension. Like, he's a very old school director, and I'm very glad to say that Sam Raimi most certainly has adapted with the times, has not allowed the changes of modern filmmaking to really affect his style. Like, his style is his style. It really is. And so that was the question. And that's always a question. Like, I didn't have any doubts necessarily going into Send Help, but that was the question, right? Like, is this the full Raimi? Is this still Sam Raimi? Like, does he still have it? This came out of nowhere. This film was not on my radar whatsoever. Until, again, like I said, about 3-4 weeks ago when I first saw the trailer, and I'm like, oh yeah, seeing that. Once I saw it was him. Because the tone, or the theme of the movie seemed like it was right up his alley, and I looked forward to seeing whether or not he still had it, as far as his particular mojo, if you will, as far as his particular talents as an auteur. And so, with that in mind, the question is, did Mr. Sam Raimi maintain his specter of brilliance with respect to being a darkly comedic auteur? My high-level thoughts to officially begin this review of Send Help answers yes, most certainly. This is effing Sam Raimi. Seriously, effing Sam Raimi. I said that about 3 or 4 times walking out of the movie theater back to my car. Effing Sam Raimi. This is Raimi. This is the full Raimi. I mean, in terms of the tone, in terms of the feeling, in terms of the story, in terms of the performances that he got out of his cast, which really, I'm going to talk about cast here in a little bit, but it's really just the 2 actors. I mean, there's really nobody else in this film. Truthfully, it's kind of a Castaway, I Am Legend situation, but it really is like kind of heartwarming, and I'm very appreciative, if you will, as a fan, that Sam Raimi is one of those filmmakers that he's always known his speed. He's always known what he excels at. He always knows what he enjoys and what he wants to get out of a film, and he delivers. The man delivers on what he does. And again, it is a very unique style, a very uniquely darkly comedic style. It is not for everyone. I asked Shonda last night if she had any remote interest in seeing this film, and she said I didn't have to wait for it. This is not a film for her. I would not recommend this film to her whatsoever, because she's not really a fan of this type of stuff. She's certainly not a horror movie fan, and I've kind of had a renaissance, in the last number of years as far as my position on horror movies, and I'm definitely now at a point where I wish to visit some more of them, especially after the ones that I reviewed this past Halloween for Flight Fright. Like, that was awesome. I saw some classics. Like, I watched Psycho. Finally, for the first time, I watched The Bird. So, like, I finally dipped my toe into Hitchcock. I watched my first Robert Eggers film, Nosferatu. I watched Weapons from Zach Kreger, right? Like, I'm starting to get further into the horror genre, because for me, horror has to be more than just jump scares. It has to be more than just blood and gore. There's got to be some story. There's got to be some character development into it. And that's something that I can appreciate from Sam Raimi, because within his darkly comedic style, he will provide all those elements that I want out of his darkly comedic film, whatever it is. But this is absolutely a darkly comedic horror movie. It's twisted. It's gory. If you were a fan of Sam Raimi's films, put this on the go see it. Absolutely put this on the calendar. There's no question. Go see it. I don't know how it's going to do, but go see this film, because it is absolutely the full Raimi from start to finish. No question about it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. High-level thoughts to start this off. Now let's talk individually about what I loved with this film, Send Help, starting with the cast. And again, like I said, listen, there's other people in this movie. Dennis Haysbert is in this movie for 2 seconds, right? The Allstate dude, that I know from, or he's a Pedro Serrano for Major League. I think he's the president in 24. He was Donald Breeden, the ex-con, that the driver in Heat, right? Like, he's been in a ton of things. He's in this movie for 2 seconds. And I really couldn't tell you anybody else of note that's in this movie outside of Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien. And, that's really where this movie has to begin and end. It's got to be about those two. Like, a movie with this type of premise, a movie with this type of setting and idea, like, it stands squarely on the shoulders of those 2 actors. Those 2 actors must gel. And I mean, they have to gel in a way where, it's not like the romantic chemistry. It's not like the finish each other's sentences chemistry. It has to be in this case, the tension-filled, horrible boss reversal situation chemistry. Like, it's gotta work. Like, you've gotta believe that Dylan O'Brien's character is a horrible son of a bitch, and that Rachel McAdams' character, what is it, Liddy? I've forgotten her first name already. Liddy, whatever. But you've got to believe that her character is just this meek, downtrodden, try-hard, resourceful nerd that, is just uncomfortable in her own skin, but still is going to wear it. That type of deal. Very relatable for any nerd types, right? It plays off of stereotypes. It does, some tropey things. But listen, all stereotypes are rooted in a form of truth. So there are definitely people like this. And you might be one of them. I certainly have some traits, like as far as being a nerd, an awkward, like introverted nerd a lot of times with respect to the character that she plays. But they've got to make it believable, right? And then when the whole story gets flipped and they end up stranded on the island, that's where you've got to believe the switch. You've got to believe the turning. You've got to believe, where her character, Rachel McAdams' character, becomes the aggressor, becomes the dominant force. And you've got to believe that she's pulling off what she's doing, but still shows the vulnerability of the insecure character from earlier, right? You've also got to believe that Dylan O'Brien, is going to show his vulnerability through force. He doesn't wish to be this way. He doesn't wish to feel the way that he does, but he's got no choice. He is without power. He has been stripped of whatever authoritativeness, whatever authority he's got over his employee, and there's nothing he can do about it. Absolutely. There is a tagline in this film that I really enjoy, which is, "There's no help coming, so you better start saving yourself." And that's a really, I like that. That's a really awesome tagline, truthfully. But it begins and ends with those two actors because they are the ones that are the driving force of this film. They are literally the cast. It's literally those two. If it doesn't work between those two, then it doesn't work. And fortunately, in my opinion, subjectively speaking, it works. You most certainly buy the horrible boss energy from Dylan O'Brien. And you certainly buy the vulnerability that he shows through force, not him being forced to do so, if you will, on the other end of it in the island. And then you buy the reverse from Rachel McAdams. I can't tell you that I've seen a ton with either Rachel McAdams or Dylan O'Brien, but I've seen enough. And maybe, I don't remember if Raimi has worked with Rachel McAdams before, but he did work with her obviously in Multiverse of Madness, and perhaps that's where the connection, because of course she's in the MCU, and if that's the case, if that's how they got together for this film, bravo, fantastic. No, I thought they were both phenomenal. I really did. McAdams definitely, my goodness, the level of emotional complexity that she has to play with this particular character, in a darkly comedic tone, and the both of them, right? Like, there's some raw acting and some raw emotions that you absolutely feel from both of them throughout this film. In the vulnerable moments, the moments of pure sheer anger and chaos, and then and terror, right? And then the domineering moments for both of them, in addition to the vulnerable moments. I mean, they really do seesaw organically very well in this film. They really do. And they're, to be clear, neither one of them are playing wholly likable characters. There are definitely things about both of them that are to be disliked in that regard. Things that you don't necessarily care for about either one of them. So it's not one of those movies that gives you necessarily a clear rooting interest. It's just one of those interesting situations where, okay, all right, I could see this, I could see that, and in some cases it's the dream scenario. In the dream scenario, if you have a horrible boss that you're dealing with, this is literally the scenario that you would want to find yourself in, where it's like, oh, the tables have turned, you can't do shit to me now. And not only that, but now I'm the resourceful one. I'm the one that you need to lean on because your power has been usurped and I have all of it now. It's a power play. It really is a great power play in that regard. And they pull it off really well, in my opinion. I think they were phenomenal in this film. And I think that, again, film doesn't work. Film does not work without the two of them being able to play that off each other as well as they did. And there are some points where it gets brutal, really brutal, darkly, comedically brutal, and it's still great. I mean, it works. It's just they're able to. They've got the timing down. They've got the tone down. They've got the behavior down. They've got everything they need to mesh with respect to this storyline, and it's really good. Like, my hats off to the both of them. They did a fantastic job with this. And again, I compare it to, Tom Hanks in Castaway, Will Smith in I Am Legend, right? This is a duo, right? This is a dynamic duo with respect to Castaway and I Am Legend settings, if you will, of what they've got to do. It's more Castaway for sure, but it works. It works really well. I really enjoyed it. And so I've said before that when it comes to these types of films, I need story. I absolutely need some form of story and some form of character development. And we most certainly get that. We absolutely get that in the writing of this particular film. Because to me, even with a movie like this, right? Because it's real easy to categorize horror films, especially ones that are darkly comedic in tone. It's really easy to just throw them away and be like, oh, well, this is going to be one note. I know what this is going to be. I know how this is going to go. And to be clear, I want to say this. With respect to the story of this film, did I call it? Yeah, I did. I mean, not entirely, but I had my suspicions. Even going into the movie, like, if you see enough of these types of movies, if you see enough horror movies, it's like, okay, I got an idea of exactly how this is going to go. Or at least I've got a couple of ideas. Maybe it's one of these, right? And in my case, it was like one or two of the ideas that I thought of in terms of what was going on with respect to the entire situation. There was one that didn't, but one idea that I had was like, oh, well, I thought about it going that route, but no, not quite. It seemed like it was leaning that way. Like, I could envision a scenario where an earlier draft of the script did go in that particular direction. But no, it didn't quite go that far. But everything else, I was kind of spot on, truthfully. And the thing is like, I know a lot of people that, fans of movies and whatnot, that, like, if they come into a scenario like that where they can just predict what happens in the film, that it ruins the film for them. They're like, oh, well, this is nothing new. I've seen this before. And to me, I feel like that's a one-note complaint. Because the thing is, again, you've got to know the aesthetic of the director. You've got to know, like, what type of storytelling they're good at. And then you also have to account for the fact that as a fan of movies, you've seen this movie more times than the average human has, right? So for me, like, I've seen these types of movies before. I've seen these types of setups before. I'm just kind of conditioned at this point to pick out plot points, to pick out character beats. Like, oh, okay, I know what's going to happen here. I know what's going to happen. Like things are not going to surprise me nearly as much now at 43 when watching a movie. Like, if you genuinely surprise me with a movie with any type of a twist in a movie at this point, after all the twisty movies I've seen, and I haven't even seen all of them. There's still other twisty movies that I need to see. But if you genuinely surprise me at this point, bravo, you deserve a medal. You most certainly do. Because my brain works. My brain thinks, and my brain starts trying to piece shit together and figure things out, unless I get lost in the story. And this wasn't necessarily a story that I got lost in, so I was thinking about certain things. But it definitely was compelling enough to the point where I'm like, okay, I have an idea how this is going to end, but am I entertained? Yes, I was entertained, most certainly. And that's really what it comes down to. So I don't care, personally me, I don't care that it was a story that I was able to suss out and, determine, okay, I think it's going to go this way, I think it's going to go that way. And yeah, again, some of you may hear that and go, oh, well, I don't want to go watch a predictable Sam Raimi movie. If you've seen enough Sam Raimi movies, you have an idea of how much fun it's still going to be, even if you can guess where the plot is going to go, where the character development is going to go. And in the end of the day, with these movies, I ask the question, are the main characters in a different place at the end of the movie than they were at the beginning of the movie? And the answer is emphatically yes. Emphatically, for a number of reasons, yes. Absolutely they are. Growth has occurred. Some type of change has massively happened by the time you get to the end of the movie. And I like that. I enjoy that. I will admit, when it got to the ending, and again, no spoilers, when I got to the ending, there was a part of it that was like, okay, so we're going there. Because it's an abrupt, not an abrupt ending where the movie just stops. You definitely get like a denouement, if you will. But it's a case where when you get to the denouement, like getting to the denouement happened rather suddenly, but it was a cool transition, which Raimi's also known for. He does cool transitions as well in a number of his films, including the Spider-Man trilogy. So, yeah, that was a little abrupt. because I was wondering, like, is it really going to go with this? And it, as it turns out, it went in a direction that, again, you might think is predictable, but it's one of those directions where you might psych yourself out. If you're an overthinker, or if you think things thoroughly like I do, like, you might overthink yourself into, like, overcorrection, like, oh, it's probably going to be this, but wait a minute, what if they went this way? And then you come back and go, oh no, they're going this way with respect to how the movie ends. But it is, depending on your perspective, a satisfying ending. It's subjectively satisfying in that regard. And it was one that initially wasn't a shock, but it was just like, oh, that's the ending. And then I thought about it, like, I sat there, like, during the credits, because I don't leave, until the credits are over. And then as I was walking out of the theater, I was like, okay, you know what? Yep, I've reconciled this. I can get it. I can reconcile my feelings with respect to how this ending goes. But no, this is a Sam Raimi film, through the writing and through the twistiness and through the darkly comedic and some of the more, like, hilarious moments with respect to it. So yeah, I don't have any complaints with respect to the story. Again, even as predictable as the plot might have been for somebody like me, it might not be for all of you. I can only speak for myself in that regard. But, like, for me, that didn't ruin things whatsoever, because I still had a lot of fun watching the story unfold. Now, I tell you what, visually speaking, I mean, whatever you wish to, like, expect from a Sam Raimi film, visually speaking, oh, you're getting it here. And reminder, it's rated R. So he didn't pull any punches, right? And I want to make it seem like he pulls punches, but when he does PG-13, but when he does PG-13, he removes the blood. There is no blood removed whatsoever from this film. It's gory. Oh yeah, it's gory at times, and very misleading also at times, like comedically and like horrifyingly misleading. There's a scene in the middle of the movie where you're just like, is she really going to do that? Is she really going to do this? Is she really going to do this? He's crying. Is she really doing this? This is actually happening. And then fake out, like, oh, okay. All right, okay. It's going in a different direction. You're like, all right. Yeah. Like, that was well done. That was really well done. Now, that one did catch me. That one did get me in the theater where I was just like, oh, I mean, because there's the blood. There's blood. There's, like, there's visuals that lead you to believe, oh yeah, this is happening. And then it's like, oh, it's this, okay, all right. Pull it back, dial it back a little. But no, this movie's unhinged. This movie's very unhinged, visually speaking. And that's Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi is extremely unhinged, visually speaking. He's not afraid of gore. He's not afraid of blood. He's not afraid of crazy shit. And there's plenty of crazy shit to see in this film. I mean, seriously. And also the way it's shot. Raimi just knows how to build tension and knows how to do it in a hilarious manner, right? Like, again, he's old school. The way he moves the camera, some of the panning shots and the camera movement that he does, or when there's another point where he fakes you out and you're hearing one of the characters' voices off screen as the camera's fully focused on the tension of the other character. And you're like, wait a minute, is there something that we're missing? Like, oh my god, like, he builds up the tension for the next time you see the other character on screen, the other actor on screen, and then it's just, you see it and it's like, oh, okay, but he got you, right? He got your emotions. Like, he wrapped it up and was like, yeah, no, he's so good at that. He's so damn good at that. Sam Raimi is just a really underrated director. He's a really underrated auteur. And this visual style, all the gags that are in this film, the visual gags and the blood and gore, the violence and whatnot that occurs in this movie, unhinged, completely chaotic, and pure Raimi, 100%, right? So that means suspension of disbelief, and I mean in a hilarious way. There is a hilarious, utterly hilarious, like, I'm going to hell for laughing at this death at the beginning of the film. Seriously, because when the plane crash happens, right? And this isn't a spoiler, because they're not the only ones on the plane, right? But they're the only two that survived the plane crash, which means you're going to see the others on the plane die. One of them for certain is like, oh my, wow, cannot believe. Like, you see it at first, you're like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? And then, like, you just see the aftermath of it, like, One of those that, yes, even now, as I reminisce on it, I'm going to hell for laughing at it. I am, because it's bloody and it's ridiculous and maybe defies the laws of physics, but it doesn't matter because it's the level of suspension of disbelief that you got to have with a Sam Raimi film. And again, it's a very unique style. It's a very unique taste. Like, either you like it or you don't in many ways, right? I don't know that there's an in-between with him. Usually there's in-betweens with directors like this, but Raimi, he's one of those that, like, his style is so strong and so sharp that, and I would say that of many auteurs. I would say that of Tarantino. I would say that about Nolan in a number of ways, truthfully. Like, the strong auteurs have their traits and have their talents, if you will. They know what they do best, and they emphasize it as strongly as they can. And Raimi most certainly does that here, in spades, visually speaking, with probably a mix of CGI with what they're doing here in terms of the effects. But I know he did some practical shit with this film, because there's some of it where some of the blood and some of the gore and some of the makeup effects, I'm like, yep, okay, I see that. Yep, that's real. They did that one practically for sure. But it's a good blend, I would say, in that regard. But yeah, you gotta turn up that dial. Gotta turn up that dial of the suspension of disbelief. That's for damn sure, without question. It's a Sam Raimi film. Would expect nothing less. You know what else I would expect nothing less with for a Sam Raimi film? The music score. And I'll tell you what, without knowing who it was, I sussed out real quick who this composer was. I'm like, oh, there's only one. There's only one composer that Sam Raimi could consistently go back to that is going to pull off something like this, that is going to build like auditory tension and great thriller, the suspenseful music, like, pulls off that score in a way that fits Raimi's visual style. And that, of course, is Mr. Danny Elfman. Because, again, I am still a fan of Danny Elfman. I know that so many of us in our circles excommunicated him after the Justice League disaster. I get it, right? You're still making fun of him for saying that Batman only has one theme because he seems so arrogant and pretentious after he said that. Yeah, well, you know what? It is what it is, okay? Does that mean that everything that he does is garbage? Of course not. And I'm still a fan of his work. I'm still a huge fan of his scores. I'm going to talk about it later when I talk about, Catherine O'Hara and whatnot on Flight Fright on Patreon. Or not Flight Fright, Friday Flight, pardon me. But, Beetlejuice, any of the Tim Burton films, and like, he's associated, Danny Elfman is, with Tim Burton's work, but he should also be associated with Sam Raimi because he's collaborated with Raimi on a couple of occasions, not the least of which Spider-Man and Darkman. Didn't he also do Multiverse of Madness? He might have. I got to remember if he did that or not. But at any rate, Elfman understands Raimi's style, and again, the darkly comedic, Danny Elfman's compositions, his score, and what he does with the orchestra, and just the way his mind works for his compositions. It works really well with the kooky, crazy, creepy shit that Tim Burton does that I really enjoy out of his movies. And it also really works for a darkly comedic sense. It does. Because it's not like Burton's movies don't have horror, but Raimi's movies have that darkly comedic horror. And Danny Elfman his music fits that so perfectly. Like, really. Like, those two filmmakers by far. Burton more so, but Raimi absolutely works so well with Danny Elfman's music in that regard. And it is like, not like you don't hear like the definitive bombastic themes like you had for Batman or for Spider-Man, but definitely you hear the orchestrations, you hear the brass, you hear the tension. He just has great peaks and valleys and knows how to help build what you're seeing visually in an auditory sense. And music is so important. Music is so vital with these films. When you get a composer that vibes with a director this well over the span of 20, 30 years, come on, I personally tip my cap to that. I respect that. I really do. I respect the hell out of that, to be honest with you. Raimi could not have chosen anyone more perfect to score a darkly comedic comedy horror film like this in this regard. So Danny Elfman, absolutely major props. This is another one of his enjoyable scores that I did like. I mean, it helped build some of the more suspenseful moments. It helped carry some of the more comedic, like goofier moments in the film. And yeah, it just works. really, really well. So yeah, I tip my cap to Danny Elfman on the score for this one. So my final thoughts on Send Help is that I enjoyed it. I did. I very much enjoyed the film. You know, the Hell site has got it certified fresh already at 92% fresh. And I think the audience, is at 89% fresh on the popcorn meter. So the Hell site enjoys it, you know, and it's been getting solid reviews, strong reviews so far, you know, and I think that, again, it's one of those that would I recommend it to everyone? No. Is when I get home here, you know, which I'm pulling up here in a little bit, when I tell Shonda when she asked me how the movie was, am I going to recommend it to her? No, most certainly I am not. But I wouldn't recommend Sam Raimi movies to her because it's just not her speed. It's just not her style, not what she gravitates towards. You got to be a Raimi fan, and you got to be a fan of the darkly comedic stuff in that regard. You know, so to me, you know, this movie I think had a $40 million budget. Like it's not a terribly expensive film, at least not that I could tell. I mean, maybe I'm misquoting the numbers on that. Maybe it was more, but either way, I don't see this as being like this film that, you know, needs to break even or needs to do this or needs to do that. No, it's just one of those, you know, late January, like, hey, let's kick off the movie season with a crazy one, right? Like one of those types of films, seriously. And, you know, I wasn't looking for a ton out of it, but I was looking for Sam Raimi, and that's what I got. I got an hour and 53 minutes of Sam Raimi glory, you know, with a Castaway type story. Castaway plus Horrible Bosses. That's what this movie is. Castaway plus Horrible Bosses. And that's that worked really well. And I personally had fun watching this film. You know, it's the first film of 2026 for me to watch in theaters, and I think it's a great start to the year, right? I mean, there's a lot to watch. There's a lot to get through as far as the theatrical presentations this year. And like I said, my end-of-year review on Patreon, you know, I only saw 11 movies in the theater last year. I aim to definitely improve that number this year. I've got way more than 11 movies on my schedule to watch. This was the first one, like essentially the first one, theatrically speaking, that I ended up seeing. So yeah, hopefully this is the sign of what's going to be, you know, a pretty awesome year for the movies, if you will, you know, which of course, as crazy as the world is today that we live in, you know, we can't let go of the art. We can't discard the art. We can't forget the art. We have to enjoy and embrace the art as much as we possibly can, not only so that, you know, we don't let the bad guys win, but also so that we can keep our own sanity as well. And watching a movie like this absolutely does maintain at least my sanity. And I imagine a number of others, you know, who enjoy, especially those who enjoy Raimi's work, can, you know, maintain their sanity and, you know, appreciate this, you know, for what it is in that regard. So yeah, Sam Raimi fans, enjoy, seriously, because this is absolutely a quintessential Raimi through and through. Really good film. Really enjoyed it. Will certainly be one that I will have to pre-order and make certain joins the ranks of the library, if you will. Yes, this most certainly is a library ad, absolutely. With respect to, come on, I own, like I said, I own the Spider-Man trilogy. I own Darkman. I own Drag Me to Hell, right? Yeah, I own A Simple Plan. Like, there's other films of his. This will get added into the Raimi catalog, the Raimi wing, if you will, of my library. So, hey, thank you, Sam Raimi. Glad that you haven't lost a step, good sir. Not that he's listening to this, but in the off chance that he would, if this somehow finds him in the ether, really happy to see that he is still the Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, Darkman filmmaker that we've come to know and appreciate, you know, and again, love the Michigan roots. Yeah, this was great. This was really good. I really enjoyed this one for sure. Great way to start 2026, no doubt. And that is going to do it for this first episode of Flight Review for 2026. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting the Flightcast in whatever way you wish to. Go see this movie if you are so inclined. And if you have any thoughts that you want to share, spoiler-filled, you want to have a spoiler-filled discussion about this film over on Flightcast with respect to the listener feedback, you know where to find me on Threads and on Instagram at the Flightcast, on BLUESKY at Flightcast. You can comment on the posting of the episode for this on the Flightcast YouTube channel. There's also the Flightcast Facebook page, and of course that can be reached by email at ray@theflightcast.com. All right, take care. Stay safe out there. Seriously, stay safe out there, people. No doubt about it. And I will see you all next time. Take it easy.